Welcome to the evening show with Jackie Brambles. This is the home of great conversations with some of your favourite artists of the 70s, 80s and 90s. Now, tonight, an artist whose prolific songwriting for other artists is as impressive as the music he's made for his own bands. Our opening track, The Things We Do for Love, got to number 6 in 1976 for 10cc. So it's an absolute delight to welcome co-founder of that group, Graham Gouldman.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
Very nice. Nice to speak to you again. Been a while.
Yes, it's been a while. It has been a couple of years, I think. And the great news is you're back with some brilliant news of. I love the title of this new tour, the ultimate greatest hits tour.
Yes, if that's possible.
What was the thinking behind that one?
Just people bandy about the word ultimate as if it is going to be the ultimate, but we know it's not. So it makes it sound like it's really the ultimate tour.
And it's going to kick off, isn't it, in March? Is that right? In Bristol?
That's correct. Yeah, March the 6th.
March the 6th. Okay. And there's 18 concerts, and then including in that is a little turn at the Royal Albert Hall.
Yes, that nice little place. Yeah, I love the Albert Hall. It's great. Everybody loves it.
From a musician's point of view, I mean, certainly as an audience member, I love going there. But for a musician, is it a great?
Well, yeah, like you, as an audience member, I like going there. When you walk in sort of backstage, though, it's got an atmosphere. There's something about it. You know, it's got so much history. So I think everybody that goes there, you know, is affected by it.
So, of course, this is 10cc, and you are the founding member. Tell us a little bit more about the rest of the band. Okay,
well, as you say, I'm the only original member from the original four of us, but we do have Paul Burgess on drums. Paul joined us in 1973 when we first went on the road. We have Rick Fenn on lead guitar, and he joined in 1976 after Kevin Godley and Noel Cream had left the band, and Eric Stewart and I carried on. And so both Paul and Rick have been by my side for, it's decades now. We've also got Keith Heyman on, who's a wonderful keyboard player and multi-instrumentalist. And Ian Hornell, who is also another singer and multi-instrumentalist. It's a great band, I must say.
It is indeed. And as you say, a few of you have been playing together for decades. And of course, 10cc itself has been in existence for over 50 years. But you were a professional songwriter with hits to your name well before that. So if it's okay with you, we'll take a meander through your musical memories, of which there are so many amazing ones. So we'll do a hop, skip and a jump across the lily pads of your life, if that's okay.
I like the lily pads of my life.
You like that one?
I hope I love it. I might incorporate it in a song someday.
Okay. You can have that one.
Okay, thank you.
Let's talk about then when you were growing up. I mean, were you always very musical, and did you come from a musical family?
Well, I started becoming aware of music when I was about 7. I wanted to play the drums. And I remember my mum's had a handbag that had a serrated surface on it. I used to get these brushes, like clothes brushes, and play it like brushes on a snare drum.
Right.
I did have a couple of lessons, but it wasn't meant to be. Although I still love drums and drummers, but I can't play the drums. But however, I was bought a guitar when I was 11, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I think I decided on that day that that's all I wanted to do was be involved in music and play the guitar.
And who would you have been looking at guitar-wise? You know, as an 11-year-old on day one, who would you have been looking at thinking, I want to be just like them?
Well, there were people like a lot of American artists, people like Chuck Berry, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly in particular.
Oh, the little things you say and do make me...
Number 5, in 1958, Rave On. That's Buddy Holly, a very early influence on tonight's special guest, Graham Gouldman of 10cc, along with Chuck Berry and the Everly Brothers. American musicians, Graham, obviously featuring strongly. What about closer to home?
Of course, there was Cliff and the Shadows were a very, very important part of my guitar playing.
Got no bags and baggage to slow me down. It ain't touching the ground.
Then there was the Skiffle era, which was quite an important era as well, with Lonnie Donegan.
Does your chewing gum lose its flavor on the bed? Don't chew it, do you swallow it in spite?
I started really joining bands as a sort of like about 14, 15. And I think we were all inspired by these skiffle players because it was kind of like homemade. You know, you could, as opposed to the big band era that I sort of grew up with when I was very young.
Yeah.
And so started making music with friends and that just grew and grew. And I was also lucky to be encouraged by my parents. They were very, they recognized that I had a gift. And as far as music in the family is concerned, my late father was very helpful to me in my songwriting. You know, he helped me with lyrics. He came up with song titles. But his mother was the person that had the musical gift in the family. And I think sometimes a gift like that sort of skips a generation. But anyway, I seem to have thankfully inherited it.
Do you remember the first record that you would ever have bought for yourself? And, you know, obviously we know the first guitar was at 11, but what would the first record have been?
The first record was Kathy's Clown by the Everly Brothers.
Oh, brilliant, Zach.
And that song was a big, and the whole thing of that record is like a lot of the music of that time, and other musicians of my era will say the same thing pretty much, that all those records by like the Everlys, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, they go into your bloodstream and remain there. And they always sort of, I think, inform what you do even to this day.
Don't want your love. This is that's for sure.
Number 1 in 1960, Kathy's Clown from the Everly Brothers, the very first record bought by our special guest tonight, Graham Gouldman of 10cc. And we will continue our great conversation with Graham right after the break. Welcome back to the evening show with Jackie Brambles, where we are mid-great conversation with our multi-talented special guest, singer, songwriter, musician and co-founder of 10cc and Wax, Graham Gouldman. Before the break, Graham, we were talking about those early influences on you as a budding musician, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly, Chuck Berry, and the homegrown talent of Cliff and the Shadows.
One thing I should mention is that the biggest influence of the lot was the Beatles, who really inspired me and many, many others to try songwriting. That was a very big deal.
Right, that was the sort of the inspiration to start actually writing your own music.
Until that time, the thing was that if you wanted to make a record, if you're a recording artist, you go somewhere like, you know, Denmark Street in London,
yeah,
where all the publishers were, and go around, you know, looking for, asking them, have you, you know, for a song. And, but that all changed with the Beatles. Suddenly, you know, well, if they can do it, I'm going to have a go at it as well.
If there's anything that me to you.
And have a go you did. I mean, you really started out, did you not, more as a songwriter for hire before, you know, 10cc came about or anything like that?
Yes, I was writing songs for other people during the mid-60s. People like the Yardbirds, the Hollies, Herman's Hermits, and several other artists. And I thought that was going to be what I would do. And I was very happy doing that. I loved it. It was fantastic because particularly the Yardbirds and the Hollies were, and Herman's Hermits, actually, these were all bands that I really loved. And then, of course, in the early 70s, we formed 10cc, and that was where all of us could express ourselves both as songwriters, as producers, and singers, artists as well.
Let's play one of the tracks you wrote earlier on in your pre-10cc days, because you did have such great success. 1966, just to take 1 year, was a bumper one for you. You had a hit with No Milk Today for Herman's Hermits, which got to number 7, and a track that got to number 5 was Bus Stop for the Hollies.
Bus stop where day she's there, I say, please shall. Bus stop where day she's there.
Number 5 in 1966, that's Bus Stop, performed by the Hollies, written by tonight's special guest in his pre-10cc days, Graham Gouldman. And of all the hits that you wrote for other artists, Graham, is there one that's particularly dear to your heart?
Well, the most important one, I suppose, was For Your Love, that I wrote for the Yardbirds in 1965. I was very lucky with that because my manager at the time, after I'd written it, said we should try and get it to the Beatles. And I said, I think the Beatles are okay in the songwriting department. But funnily enough,
they're doing all right.
The Yardbirds were actually supporting the Beatles at a Christmas show at the Hammersmith Odeon.
Right.
And I think that gave our publisher the idea he knew they were looking to do something a bit more commercial, because up to that time they'd really been like a rhythm and blues band.
Yeah.
And a fantastic band as well. They were. And anyway, that's how that song eventually For Your Love found its way to the Yardbirds. That was a big hit for them, and led on to me writing 2 more songs for them.
Oh, incredible. There's a lovely story around your sort of first Top of the Pops experience. I won't say appearance because you didn't appear on it, but your very first time in Top of the Pops, you were the warm-up band, weren't you?
Yeah, the Mockingbirds were a warm-up band. Top of the Pops used to come from a converted church in Manchester, and
yeah,
they had warm-up bands because, you know, the audience was in there, but it took time to adjust the lighting and camera angles. So we were playing for the audience, waiting, you know, before the actual proper show was broadcast. And the Yardbirds happened to be on the week that we were the warm-up band, and they performed the song that I'd written, which was For Your Love.
For your love.
For Your Love, a number 3 hit in 1965 for the Yardbirds, written by tonight's special guest, Graham Gouldman of 10cc. So let's get into that then, into 10cc becoming a full band. That was yourself, Eric Stewart, and Kevin Godley and Lol Cream, who much later on went on to form Godley and Cream, of course.
Well, Kevin and Lol and I were all rehearsed in different bands at a club in North Manchester, and sort of got to know each other there. I was in a band that was playing sort of cabaret type music, which I wasn't happy with.
Right.
And decided to break away, asked Kevin to join me. So there was me and Kevin. And then I met Eric Stewart, and of course, Kevin and Lol were very good friends. And the 4 of us just came together. I became a partner in Strawberry Studios in Stockport, which was started off by Eric and a guy called Peter Tattersall.
Right.
I became a partner in that, brought Kevin and Lol in, and we would, for a time before we became 10cc, like the house band at the studio, playing on other people's records, writing football songs, doing anything. It was fun for us, and it was also kind of a serious business at the same time.
Right.
And then when the studio was quiet, we would write songs and record them. I think one thing was interesting, that all of us were really quite confident that we were going to do well. We knew that we had something special even when we'd done our first few recordings. And that proved to be correct. We recorded a song called Donna, which we thought was going to be a B-side. But as we were recording it, we knew we had something special. And that was our first hit, and the rest is history.
Donna, the debut hit in 1972 for 10cc, which got to number 2 for our special guest, 10cc's Graham Gouldman, and we will continue our great conversation with Graham next. Welcome back to the Great Conversation on the evening show with Jackie Brambles, having a top-notch natter tonight with Graham Gouldman of 10cc. Before the break, Graham, we were talking about sort of the big break for 10cc, having a huge hit with Donna straight off the bat in 1972. You had enormous success over the piece. You had 13 top 40 hit records, including 3 number ones, of which one, I'm Not in Love, has become one of those sort of standalone iconic tracks that everybody knows, whether you're a huge 10cc fan or for younger generations who perhaps aren't aware. Everybody knows that song. So can you tell us a little bit about how it came into being?
Well, I always thought we could write a great love song, but we kind of avoided it because it was a cliche. And up to that point, we had never written an actual love song. And I was talking about that to Eric Stewart, who I co-wrote the song with, and he came up with a great title, which was almost like an anti-love song, I'm Not in Love. The writing of it was quite quick. I had this opening chord sequence, these two very sort of beautiful sort of chords that went together really well. We wrote the song really quickly, as any songwriter will tell you. The good ones seem to come quickly.
Right.
We recorded it as a bossa nova the first time we recorded it, and we hated it, and we erased it because we didn't want anybody to hear it.
Wow.
It's a kind of a pity, really. It would be interesting to hear that now. But then we came up with a new idea. I think it was Kevin said, well, why don't we do this just with voices and nothing else? So we had to have a rhythm track to work to. And then the idea was we'd do the rhythm track, do it just with voices and then take the rhythm track off. But even after we'd put the rhythm track down, that track itself had a kind of magic about it. And every production idea that we tried worked. And I think that was because if you've got a great song, it just inspires great ideas. And that's what happened.
I'm not in love, so don't forget it. You wait a long time for me.
I'm Not in Love, a massive hit for 10cc and the breakthrough record for them that brought international success in America and around the world. But 10cc, as it was, ended rather abruptly not that long after then, when 2 of the band members, Godley and Cream, decided to leave to form their own duo. How did you and Eric Stewart deal with that?
Eric and I had spent quite a long time discussing whether we should carry on with the name and recording under the name 10cc, and thought, well, we should do. We worked hard to get as far as we had.
Yeah.
It was a real pity that Kevin and Lowell left. I mean, I regret it to this day when I think of what we could have achieved. However, Eric and I did carry on, and we had, certainly 2 very, very big hits. In fact, our biggest hit in America was The Things We Do for Love. And then, of course, we had a number 1 with Dreadlock Holiday.
That's amazing, isn't it? Because that does not often happen when lineups change as much as that.
No, it doesn't. And one thing that was unusual about 10cc is that we had 3 number 1 records in the UK with 3 different singers.
Oh, who did the lead vocals on them then?
Rubber Bullets was sung by Lowell. I'm Not in Love was Eric, and Dreadlock Holiday was me.
That's amazing. There's obviously some kind of continuity thread running through all of that. I think it's you, Graham.
I suppose I am, actually. But we had a very good sort of work ethic, I think, in 10cc, in that whoever was the best person for the job got the job. So there wasn't specifically only I'm going to play this type of guitar or on this track or whatever, or I'm going to sing everything. It wasn't like that at all. So it worked out really well.
And later on, of course, after 10cc, you had more success when you teamed up with Andrew Gold and formed Wax together. How did that come about? Because isn't there a story that he almost joined 10cc, but sort of pulled out at the last minute?
Well, he didn't pull out at the last minute. He said he couldn't do it because he had a fear of flying, which was a real shame. He would have been absolutely perfect. We started working with Andrew because our American record company wanted us to work with an American writer-producer in the hope that we might have some album success in America, something that had evaded us
right
up to that point. And working with Andrew was an absolute joy. And when Eric Stewart and I decided to call it a day with 10cc, Andrew was the first person I contacted. And I had a studio at my house, asked him to come out. I said, come over for a couple of weeks. Let's just sort of mess around in the studio and see what happens.
Yeah.
And he stayed for about 6 months.
Wow.
And we got on so well musically and on a personal level. And it was a very, very happy relationship. You know, we had some success with Bridge to Your Heart in particular.
Of course.
And right up to the time of his passing in 2011, we were talking about doing another Wax album, which
really,
unfortunately never came about.
Number 12 in 1987. That's the brilliant Bridge to Your Heart by Wax, who were Andrew Gold, partnered up with tonight's special guest on our great conversation, Graham Gouldman. And also in more recent years, Graham, you were invited to join Ringo Starr's band, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, in 2018, I did 2 big tours with Ringo, which was great. We did an American tour and a European tour. Absolutely loved it. And particularly working with Ringo. And there was also Colin Hay and Steve Lukather were in the band as well.
Steve Lukather of Toto and Colin Hay of Men at Work.
Men at Work. I loved working with them and Ringo. And it was a slightly a surreal experience working with Ringo and I actually wrote a song about it called Standing Next to Me, which is, as it says, in the title, he'd be standing next to me, and when he wasn't playing the drums, came to the front of the stage to sing, and I just loved it. It was brilliant.
We sang a song about a man who's sad and lonely, standing next to me.
Standing next to me, brilliantly encapsulating that full circle experience of going from being a kid who, like millions of others, fell in love with the Beatles at a very young age to joining one of the Beatles on a world tour. I mean, what an incredible life in music it's been, Graham, and continues to be. But we have got to the part of our great conversation hour where I have to call upon you to pick our final track. Now, this is a song that you return to often because it just always hits you right in the heart every single time. And I always wait with bated breath to hear what all of our guests choose, of course, but particularly the songwriters who tend to go for something that they admire from that songwriting perspective. So what have you decided to go for?
Well, it's a song that I've always loved, a song I'd wish I'd written. And on the 10cc shows, when the gig has finished, this is our sort of play out music as the audience is leaving. I have this song playing, and it's Wichita Lineman by Glenn Campbell.
Oh, I love that song so much.
What a song.
Wichita Lineman, the debut hit for a young Glenn Campbell in 1969, and tonight's beautiful final track as chosen by our special guest Graham Gouldman of 10cc. I confess, I thought it might either be that Glenn Campbell track, Graham, or the Beach Boys' God Only Knows.
Also, No Slouch.
Thank you, Graham, so much. Enjoy the tour.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jackie. Nice to speak to you again. Bye-bye.
Graham Gouldman on the road with 10cc for their ultimate greatest hits tour, kicking off on the 7th of March in Bristol, across the UK for 3 weeks. And then later on in the year, they will be in Ireland in September.